Hey, what's up guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. In today's video, I just wanted to walk you through that demo that I just played for you. That's actually an original song that I wrote a few years ago. It's just a condensed version that I kind of shortened for this video here, for this lesson, but that's all the main parts of the song. So the whole point that I want to get across here is that I wrote that entire thing and it's just using one single key. And because it's only using one single key, there's only really one scale that I need to think about the whole time. Within that one single scale, you're focusing on certain notes. That's the chord tone targeting aspect. We're going to get all into that in this lesson and everything. But with just a handful of chords that are all part of one single key and one single scale, you can really do a whole lot. You can really have the music take a whole bunch of twists and turns and all types of stuff. So that's what I'm basically showing you here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the name of the song. I called it 34. The reason I call it 34 is because the song starts out in 3, and then in the middle of the song, I guess you could call it the bridge section, it switches to 4. So the song is in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then it switches to 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why I called it 34. So I will explain all that stuff to you as we go through this lesson. Let's jump into it now. All right, so the song takes place in the key of A major / F sharp minor. We're just going to call this the key of F sharp minor because the whole song has kind of like a metal feel to it, or like a darker type of vibe to it. So we're not going to say that this is a song in a major key. We're going to say this is a song in a minor key. A major, F sharp minor, pick whichever one you want. That's the key that we're in. All right, so within this key, it uses the 4 most commonly used chords within any key, which are the 1, 4, 5, and 6 chords. So the rhythm goes like this. Loops back around. So that's the rhythm. It just does that the entire time for all of the chords. So if you try to count 4 to that, if you try to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not really going to work. That's why this part is what is known as just being in 3, 4 time signature. You could also say that this is in 6, 8 time signature. You can get into some theory nerd battles about this stuff, but for the most part, most musicians are going to know what you're talking about when you say, hey, this is in 3. It's not in 4, it's in 3. So let's not get into a huge nerd battle discussion as to whether this is in 3, 4, or 6, 8. It's just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's in 3. You're not going to be able to count 4 to it. All right. So those are the chords. You're just using the 4 most common chords from any given key, the 1, 4, 5, and 6 chords, and it's played in that particular order, and it's in 3, not in 4. All right, so then the heavy part of the song kicks in, and I'm just playing the exact same thing that I was just playing, except I'm playing in power chord form. So you can take any song that consists of major and minor chords and reduce everything to just power chords. Power chords are neither major nor minor. They're just the 1 and the 5, root 5. So F sharp power chord, A power chord, E power chord, D power chord. All right, so that's the rhythm part. So the lead part, since this is entirely just in one single key, we don't have any out-of-key stuff being used. There's no need to switch scales. We only need to think of one single scale the entire time. And that one single scale is what? It's the key scale. What key are we in? We're in the key of A major. So the scale we use the entire time is the A major scale. You could also say that we're in the key of F sharp minor. All right, no problem. So the scale that we use the entire time is the F sharp natural minor scale. The F sharp natural minor scale has the same 7 notes as the A major scale. That's your scalar framework. That's all I'm doing the entire time for this entire song. So looking at this 7-note scale, Whether you want to call this the A major scale or the F sharp natural minor scale, it's entirely up to you. But looking at the 7 notes of that scale across the fretboard, this is our soloing framework. So this is what I do right here. I just start out right here on the 2nd fret of the low E string, and I go. All right, so basically I'm just playing F sharp minor arpeggio right there. Works perfectly over the F sharp minor chord. All right, but all the notes that I use are right from this framework of notes right here. This is your F sharp natural minor scale. This is your A major scale. Everything that I play is part of this scale. All right, I slide down to that note right there, the 5th fret of the A string, right at the moment that the chord switches to the D major chord. So. So by the time I get to that note right there, the chord in the rhythm section is on the D major chord. The second time around, I land on this note D. Follow along with the scale diagram that's displayed on the screen as well, because that's all I'm playing. I'm just playing in key. I'm only using notes from the F sharp natural minor scale. I'm only using notes from the A major scale. I'm only sticking to those 7 notes the entire time. But I'm also chord tone targeting. I'm landing on notes as the chord changes occur. I'm landing on notes within this scale that are part of the chord that is occurring at the moment. All right, so after we're here, we then repeat the same type of rhythm. So then in this part, you have some guitar harmonies going on. So all that I'm doing here for this type of guitar harmonizing that you hear here is, it's called third up harmonizing. So whatever guitar 1 is doing, guitar 2 is doing the exact same thing, but you're just counting 3 scale notes up. Not 3 notes up, not 3 frets up, 3 scale notes up. So whatever the note that you're trying to harmonize with, you have that note, that's your note, that's what guitar 1 is playing. You want to determine what the note that guitar 2 is going to play that's going to harmonize perfectly with that note. Start on that note, that's 1, 2, 3. Count 3 scale notes up. Those 2 notes together are going to harmonize perfectly with each other. So let's just kind of break this down. So guitar number 1 does something like this. Guitar number 2 does something like this. Played by itself, it doesn't really sound that good, but when you play them together, they harmonize perfectly together because every single note is a third apart from each other. So this note right here, what's 3 notes higher than that, or what's 3 scale notes higher than that? You can start here and you can use any scale pattern you want, just as long as it's an F sharp natural minor scale pattern or an A major scale pattern. You have the whole scale mapped out across the fretboard for you on the screen. So if this is our scale, there's 3 notes above. 1, 2, 3. So these 2 notes harmonize. Then you're trying to harmonize with this note. So 3 scale notes above that. 1, 2, 3. All right. That's the same note as this. All right. So these 2 notes harmonize together. And then you go. All right, so what's 3 scale notes above this? So there's 3 scale notes above that. So what's 3 scale notes above that? It's the same note right there. All right, so those notes harmonize together. So played 3 scale notes higher is this. So that's what guitar part 1 played. That's what guitar part number 2 played. As long as they played the exact same thing as one another, but separated by exactly 3 scale notes each, it's going to have that nice thirds harmony sound to it. So go through that section, listen to all the guitar 2 harmonies. It's not that much. There's not that much. Most of the stuff that's happening in this section of this song is guitar 1. So this is just subtle guitar 2 harmonies coming in here. But try to figure them all out. There's only like 4 little harmonies, but every single one is this thirds above harmony. So go ahead and try to figure it out. Try to stick around this area of the neck of the guitar between frets 9 and 12. Just count 3 scale notes up and you'll get these harmonies. All right, so for this part, I'm using the same 4 chords I have been the entire song, but I'm adding a 5th chord now. We're going to talk a little bit more about that 5th chord in a second. The other thing is I am putting a capo on the 7th fret here, and the only reason I'm putting a capo on the 7th fret is just so I can get different voicings of these chords. I'm using the same exact chords I have been the entire time, with the addition of this 5th chord that I'm going to talk about in a second. It's just, instead of playing the open sounding voicings, which I'll play for you first, and then we can compare it to the capoed sounding voicings. So what I mean by voicing a chord differently is that, so a G major chord is the notes G, B, and D, but you have G's, B's, and D's all over the entire neck of the guitar. So any combination of G, B, and D will produce a G major chord. But if you play combinations of G, B's, and D's down here, it's going to sound a lot different than if you play combinations of G's, B's, and D's like up here. That's a different voicing of the same chord. You see what I'm saying? So let me just play the progression as it sounds without a capo, and then I'll play it with the capo so you can hear the difference between the 2 different ways of voicing it. So the actual chords being used are a D major, to an A major, to an E major, to an F sharp minor. Same 4 chords I've been using the entire time. So the whole thing around goes like this. Loops back over again. So that C sharp major chord, the 5th chord that we're adding here, that's actually an out of key chord. If you look at your grouping of 6 for the key that we're in, the key of A major, the key of F sharp minor, you'll see that the diatonic chord for this key is a C sharp minor chord. This is very common to make that chord in the inner circle clockwise position. It's very common to make that chord major. I actually did a whole video on that. It's called My Favorite Chord or something like that. I'll put a link to that one. It's about taking this specific chord, it's the 3 chord of the key, and making it into a major chord. If you're numbering the chords from the minor perspective, so if you're, instead of saying the A major chord is your 1 chord, which would imply that this is the key of A major, if you instead say that the F sharp minor chord is the 1 chord, which would imply that this is the key of F sharp minor, even though they're still the same key as far as I'm concerned. If you label the F sharp minor chord as the 1 chord, that would mean that this C sharp chord is your 5 chord. So diatonic, it would be a minor 5 chord, but it's being made into a major 5 chord. All you need to know is that within the grouping of 6, inner circle clockwise position, that is the chord that is very commonly made into a major chord. So if you were to keep that 3 chord minor, which is the diatonic version of this chord, if you were to keep it minor, it wouldn't have that same cool type of tensiony effect, which brings the loop back around in the manner that it does. Let me show you what it sounds like as if I were to keep that C sharp minor. So it still works, you know, it's not like a bad sounding chord, but it just doesn't have that. It helps to bring the loop back around. So there's so many cool things that can be done by taking that chord, making it major. Major 3 chord from the major perspective, major 5 chord if you're numbering from the minor perspective. It's just the inner circle clockwise position, made major. And just one more thing before I slap the capo on real quick. So this is the part of the song that is in 4/4 timing. All right, so if you try to count along to this rhythm, you're not going to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 anymore. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So try to count along. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can count, this is in 4, this is not in 3 anymore. So, yeah, I just want to point that out. So let's slap this capo on here now, and you can hear how this chord progression sounds much differently when you use these different voicings. All right, so same as that chord progression, I'm just using different voicings. And it's going to result in different shapes, but I'm going to explain this in a second. So that's how it's played up there. So when you slap the capo on the 7th fret, now you're using different shapes. That doesn't change the fact that they're still the same chords. Like this is still a D major chord. This is still an A major chord. This is still an E major chord, you know? So it's still the same chords being used. It's just that when you slap the capo on and you play these different shapes of the same chords, essentially what you're doing is you're applying the cage system. You can call it the cage system. You can call it not the cage system. You can call it whatever you want. Most people that play guitar for any amount of time will look at this and be like, oh, that's a G shape, because they're used to playing the G chord down here. So they know, they're just like, oh, that's a G, right? Down here it's a G. But when you play it up here and you have a capo on the 7th fret taking care of these strings which would otherwise be open, this isn't a G anymore. It's a G shape. That's what the cage system gives you. It gives you shapes, right? But it's not actually a G chord, it's a D chord. Why? Because if you look at the actual notes that are being used, so right here, 10th fret of the low E string, that's actually the note D. So that's the root of the chord. That's the lowest note being played in this chord, it's the note D. So right there, that gives you an indication that this is probably some sort of a D chord. It's not a G chord. But let's look at the rest of the notes. So you have a D there, then this note right here, 9th fret of the A string, that's the note F sharp. And then this note right here, which is taken care of by the capo, which is actually the 7th fret of the D string. 7th fret of the D string, that's the note A. So D, F sharp, A, that's your notes that make up a D major chord. You can go through the rest of the strings and all of the notes are going to be notes of the D major chord, because that's what we're doing right here. We're playing a D major chord. We're just using a different voicing of it. So we're playing a D major chord in the G shape. And then when we move to here, we're playing an A major chord in the D shape. This right here, most guitar players that have been playing for any length of time, they're very familiar with the open D major chord, but when you play it up here, it's not a D major chord anymore. It just maintains that D shape. So this is an A major chord in the D shape. This is then an E major chord in the A shape. This is then an F sharp minor chord in, you could call this the A shape made minor. Looping back around again, you have the D major in the G shape, the A major in the D shape, and then you have that C sharp major chord being played in this shape right here. This would be known as the E shape. All right, so you're just basically applying the cage system and you're using a capo to help you out. You could play all those shapes if you want, but it would be way harder without the capo. All right, so now we'll talk about the lead part for the acoustic section, and you can play this all right here. I may have played it a little differently, but I'm just going to show you how to do it all in one single box pattern. It's kind of easier just for teaching purposes. So this is pentatonic position number 4. I refer to this as the A string home box on the Zombie Guitar website. So it starts out by going, so it walks up to there. So why does it walk up to that note? Well, because that's the note D, and the first chord is a D chord. So this whole section right here is all chord tone targeting. Every single note that I land on as a chord change occurs, it's always a chord tone of the chord that's being changed to. So that note right there is a D, and then it goes. Alright, so what's that note right there? That's the note D flat or the note C sharp. Alright. The next chord is an A major chord. What are the notes of an A major chord? A, C sharp, and E. So a chord tone of the A major chord is the note C sharp. That's why that note sounds good played over an A major chord. That's the note B, and that's played over the next chord. The next chord happens to be an E major chord. The notes of an E major chord are E, G sharp, B. All right, so the note B is going to sound good over an E major chord because it's a chord tone. And then right there, that's the note A, and that's taking place over this F sharp minor chord. The notes of an F sharp minor chord are F sharp, A, and C sharp, so A is a chord tone of that. Starts back over, does the exact same thing. So that note right there, that's the note G sharp, that's a chord tone of the C sharp major chord. All right, that's the 5th of the C sharp major chord, so chord tones are always going to sound good when played over the underlying chord. So then the next time around during this lead part, we're still in the same pattern here. We're still chord tone targeting over each chord that's occurring in the rhythm section. It's just now we're chord tone targeting different tones of each chord. So it gives this whole lead section a different sound. That way we're not just playing the same exact thing 2 times in a row, which would get boring. So the second time around goes like this. So that's played over a C sharp major chord. The notes of a C sharp major chord are C sharp, F, and G sharp. So that F, that's that note that we just played right there. That F, that out of key note, that's the 3rd of the C sharp major chord. So the thing that makes that C sharp major chord out of key, as opposed to the in key C sharp minor chord, that's the diatonic chord found in this key. It's not a C sharp minor chord though, it's a C sharp major chord. The thing that makes it a major chord as opposed to a minor chord is that note F. All right, so that one note F is the reason that it doesn't sound like this. It instead sounds like this, as opposed to that F right there. That's that note that we targeted right there. All right, so that's that out of key note. Everything else that we played during that whole entire lead section was played right in that little box pattern right here, all in key stuff. That was the one time we played the out of key note, that F, which was right there, and that's the one that connects with the out of key note from the C sharp major chord. Alright, so then the distortion kicks back on and plays the exact same progression I was just playing. I took the capo off because now I'm just going to play it in power chord form again. I don't care about those pretty high voicings anymore. It's also still in 4/4 timing. It's the same timing that we were just in the previous section, but now it's just played in power chords. Back over again. That's all the rhythm section is doing here. Let's now look at the lead. All right, so this part goes something like this. right there. I'm still just playing right there in that pentatonic position number 4, which I refer to as the A string home box. And my note selection is always going to be determined on what the underlying chords are doing. And then finally, we have the harmony part for this section. So guitar 2 does exactly what guitar 1 does, except a third higher. So every single note that guitar 1 plays, you can figure out the perfect third up harmony for guitar 2 by looking at the note that guitar 1 is playing, count 3 scale notes up, and that's going to be the note that guitar 2 plays. Do it for every single note that guitar 1 plays, even the bends. So let's actually just go through a couple right now. So the start of this part, so it's starting there. So it's starting on that note, it's bending to this note. So that's what the guitar 1 is doing. So if I'm starting here and I'm bending to this note, if that's 2 notes. So I need both of those notes to be a third above for what guitar 2 is doing. So what's 3 notes above this? I can play it there, I can play it here, and I'll just play it here. So that's 3 notes above that note. What about the second note? If I'm bending guitar 1 from here to here, guitar 2 is going to be bending a whole step. Guitar 1 is going from here to here. Guitar 2 is going from here to here. Guitar 1 is only moving by a half step, but guitar 2 is moving by a whole step. But those two harmonize perfectly together because this note and this note are 3 scale notes apart from each other, and this note are also 3 scale notes apart from each other. And then the rest of that part, so what are those 2 notes? So 1, 2, 3, there's the harmony for that note. What about this note? 1, 2, 3. So there's the harmony for that note. So guitar 1 is doing, guitar 2 is doing. Everything that was played right there was just 3 scale notes higher than what guitar 1 does. Put guitar 1 and guitar 2 together, pretty harmonies. Guitar 2 then finishes up by doing this. Alright, that's harmonizing with this, which is what guitar 1 is doing. Guitar 2 is. Both at the same time. So those 2 notes together, those are both chord tones of the C sharp major chord. So I would rather have those 2 notes in there than these 2 notes, for which only one of those 2 notes is a chord tone of the C sharp major chord. So that's why I chose to do this for guitar 2 as opposed to this. You could try them both out if you want. You know, sometimes the harmonies that, you know, sometimes different harmonies work for different contexts, depend on the person playing the song or depend on the people listening to it, you know. There's not just one way to do this stuff, all right? So there's always going to be multiple ways to harmonize, but that's just how I harmonized over that one particular chord right there. All right, and with that, that is the whole song. That is all the guitar parts, acoustic, electric, harmonies, all that stuff. So if you have any questions about this or if you want me to elaborate on anything further, feel free to ask. I'll be glad to help. And as always, thank you guys for watching. And just a quick little promo, zombieguitar.com. If you haven't checked out my website, zombieguitar.com, check it out. Appreciate it. See you guys.